Welcome to the members, staff, guests, to the April meeting of the Dormitory Authority. Thank you all for being here. It's a beautiful day in Albany to look at. You don't want to go out there because it's really cold, really cold. But it is pretty here today. I like that. We have a lot of work to do today. We'll start with the election of officers behind the tab 1. You've had a chance to take a look at this list and to raise any questions about the folk on it. And their offices are clear from the resolution. Are there any questions about it? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please, to approve it? Motion. Thank you, Charlie. Elizabeth, thank you for the second. All in favor, please indicate with aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. As there are none opposed, the motion carries unanimously. Behind tab 2 are the minutes of the March 7 meeting. You've all had a chance to review the minutes. Are there any questions or proposed revisions? Before I ask for a vote, let me say that we were fortunate enough, as you may recall, to have George Westervelt here representing the Director of the Budget. He gave what I thought was a terrific presentation. We're very fortunate to have George back with us. It's been a while, apparently, since he's been at this table. Now, I'll ask for a vote. May I have a motion, please, to approve the minutes? Elizabeth, thank you. Adrian, thank you for the second. All in favor, please indicate with aye.
Aye.
As there are none opposed, the motion carries unanimously. Chairman Romsky, may we have the Finance Committee report?
Thank you. We met yesterday afternoon in Albany. We adopted the meeting minutes from the March meeting of the Finance Committee. We then advanced to discuss the NYU financing, which we unanimously recommend approval at today's meeting. And we also did the school district revenue bond financing program offering. And again, we recommend that be approved at today's meeting. And that concludes my report, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jerry. May I have a motion, please, to go into executive session to discuss the financial and credit history of particular corporations and proposed pending or current litigation? How am I doing? Thank you very much, Chairman Romsky. Is there a second? Thank you very much, Charlie. All in favor, please indicate with aye.
Aye.
Aye. I don't know who that's clear. Everybody? We've just left an executive session during which there were no decisions made other than to return to the public session. And I want to apologize to the staff and guests for having to leave the room for a longer period of time than I thought was going to be necessary. And I do apologize for that. It was an important session. We now move to the next session of the meeting, the adoption of financing documents, and we will turn to the President.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Behind tab 4 is the Columbia University transaction with co-bond counsel Abby Olson, Esquire of Nixon Peabody, and Vivian Druhan, Esquire of Druhan Lee, and Gabe Ostrander presents. Mr. Chair, I would like to add for the record that I have done no work on this transaction and recuse myself from this as I teach a class at the college.
Thank you. Welcome to the table. Thank you all.
Good morning. This is financing that was presented to the board at the March 7th meeting for resolution to proceed. Since that time, there's really been no change in the projects described to the board or the structure of the financing. So really, I just want to update the board that the PACB approval was on March 16th, and seeker work has been completed. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, David. Are you all going to, in what order are you going to present?
I'm going to go first.
Thank you.
Good morning. Before you today for your adoption are two series resolutions, each authorizing up to $350 million in bonds pursuant to the authority's Columbia University Revenue Bond Resolution, adopted in September 2000 and amended and restated in 2008. Each series resolution authorizes bonds to be issued first to finance new capital expenditures in connection with the design, construction, and renovation of projects throughout the university system, including at the Manhattanville, Morningside Heights, and medical campuses. Second, to refund certain Columbia University revenue bonds, Series 2008A, previously issued by the authority pursuant to a prior resolution adopted by the authority in 2008 in order to finance the cost of construction and renovation of various university facilities. And three, to pay cost of the issuance of the 2018 bonds. In no event can the principal amount of both series of bonds authorized under the two series resolutions exceed $350 million in the aggregate. Each series resolution delegates to various officers of the authority certain terms of the 2018 bonds, including the principal amount thereof, subject to the $350 million limitation, the final maturity date, which shall not be more than 35 years from the date of issuance, the interest rates to be borne by the 2018 bonds, provided that the true interest cost does not exceed 7.5%, and the terms of redemption or purchase in lieu of redemption for the 2018 bonds. No debt service reserve fund is expected to be established, and no credit enhancement is expected to be procured for the 2018 bonds, although the series resolutions do authorize credit enhancement if the authority decides that market conditions dictate it. The general resolution does not establish a debt service reserve fund. The series resolutions also authorize various officers to execute and deliver a preliminary and final official statement, a bond purchase agreement, and all other documents necessary and convenient for the sale and issuance of the 2018 bonds and the refunding of the Series 2008A bonds. The 2008A bonds to be refunded will be determined at the time of pricing and will satisfy the refunding criteria applied by the state and the authority in determining eligible refunding candidates.
Thank you, Vivian. Abby?
The general resolution permits the issuance from time to time of multiple series of bonds. Each series of bonds issued under the general resolution are special obligations of the authority, payable solely out of payments made by the university under the loan agreement, and are secured by the funds and accounts established under the applicable series resolution. The university obligations under the loan agreement, which was executed by the authority and the university in September 2000 in connection with the issuance of the first series of bonds under the general resolution and was amended and restated in 2011, are general obligations of the university. The loan agreement requires the university to make payments in amounts and at times sufficient to make timely payment of the principal and fund installments of and interest on all bonds outstanding under the general resolution, including the Series 2018 bonds. The university's obligations under the loan agreement are not secured by any pledge of revenues or mortgages on any security interests in any property of the university. The loan agreement contains a covenant by the university to engage a management consultant and abide by its recommendations if the university's ratings fall below certain thresholds. The covenant permits the authority to require the university to engage a management consultant if its Fitch or Standard & Poor's rating falls to A+ or its Moody's rating falls to A1. It also requires the university to engage a management consultant if its Fitch, Moody's, or Standard & Poor's ratings fall below these ratings. However, in lieu of engaging a management consultant or implementing its recommendations, the loan agreement permits the university to elect to provide security for its indebtedness under the loan agreement in form and substance satisfactory to the authority in its sole discretion. The 2018 bonds are proposed to be sold in a negotiated sale to Goldman Sachs pursuant to a bond purchase agreement. The bond purchase agreement contains terms and conditions that are customary in connection with the authority's bonds. We are happy to answer any questions you have regarding the transaction. Thank you.
Thank you, Abby, and please give our regards to Virginia. All right. John, did you have a question? No. I'm sorry, I thought I saw your hand up. Are there questions then for Vivian, for Abby, or for David? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please, to approve the transaction? John Gardner, thank you very much. Is there a second? Paul, thank you for the second. All in favor, please indicate with aye. Aye. As there are none opposed, the motion carries unanimously. Thank you all very much. David, we're actually going to get one of those little tags for the back of your chair. Because you're going to be here all day, I think. Mr. President.
Thank you. Behind tab 5 is New York University transaction with co-bond counsel Lori Paul of Hawkins, Delafield, and Wood, and Patrick McGlashan of the McGlashan Law Firm, and Dave Ostrander presenters.
Good morning.
Lori, Patrick, welcome.
Thank you. Good morning.
The staff report provided to the members presents 4 series of tax-exempt and/or taxable, fixed and/or variable rate bonds in an amount not to exceed $790 million, with maturities not to exceed 40 years on behalf of New York University. Bond proceeds will be used to finance numerous construction and renovation projects located throughout the New York University system, and to refinance a portion of amounts drawn on the university's lines of credit for various capital projects. Those projects are laid out in more detail in the staff report, so I'll just highlight a few of the larger projects. The first is the construction of a mixed-use building at 181 Mercer Street, which will include a modern athletic facility, new classrooms, performing arts space, and student and faculty housing. The second is the construction and equipping of a new approximately 350,000 square foot building at 435 East 30th Street to house advanced medical research facilities for the School of Medicine. And the third is improvements to facilities located at the university's Brooklyn campus, including 370 J Street. As far as the credit of the university, Moody's Investors Service assigned a rating of AA2 to the university's outstanding obligations with a stable outlook, and S&P has rated the university's obligations AA- with a stable outlook. So accordingly, the university qualifies for an unsecured borrowing under DASNY's financing guidelines. I think the board is pretty familiar with the credit strength of NYU, so I'll just highlight a couple of the trends from 2017. As you know, NYU is one of the largest private higher education institutions in the nation, measured by enrollment. And for fall of 2017, the university received 64,000 applications for first-time freshmen, which is the 10th year in a row of record applications. And for fall of 2017, total headcount enrollment reached 51,123. The university's overall revenue mix is diverse, and for fiscal year 2017, only 30% of the university's total operating revenues came from net tuition and fees. And lastly, NYU reported total net assets in excess of $5.69 billion for fiscal year 2017, which is a 26% increase over 5 years. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, David. Lori, Patrick, who will begin?
Before you today for your consideration and action are 4 series resolutions, each of which authorizes a separate series of bonds to be issued under the authority's New York University Revenue Bond Resolution that was adopted in 2008. The proceeds of the bonds authorized will be loaned to the university pursuant to a loan agreement that was approved and entered into by the authority and the university back in 2008 as well. All 4 series resolutions are identical to one another except for the series designation, and each authorizes the issuance of a series of bonds up to a maximum principal amount of $790 million. However, the combined principal amount of all bonds that may be issued pursuant to the 4 series resolutions is also limited to $790 million, such that the issuance of bonds under one series resolution effectively reduces the authorized remaining amount under the others. The reason for the adoption of 4 resolutions versus one of 2, which is typical, is to afford the university maximum flexibility. Flexibility to issue bonds at one or more times, flexibility to issue both federally taxable bonds and tax-exempt bonds. Federally taxable bonds are often desirable for them to allow the university to use the projects that they're financing in a manner that wouldn't otherwise be allowed if they had issued tax-exempt bonds. Also, flexibility to issue a portion of the bonds authorized in a direct purchase private placement scenario. If that option were exercised, they would obviously comply with the university's guidelines for private placements in restricting sales to QIBs, qualified institutional buyers, and minimum denominations of $100,000. David did a good job on the purposes and projects, so I won't repeat that. But to go to security, I think this is the 9th time the board has been asked to authorize bonds under this particular resolution. And these bonds, like all other bonds previously issued under the general resolution, will be special obligations of the authority, payable solely from the payments made by the university pursuant to the loan agreement and for amounts in the funds and accounts held by the trustee under the general resolution. All of the bonds issued pursuant to the series resolutions adopted today will be on a parity with each other, as well as on a parity with all other bonds issued under the general resolution. The university's obligation to make payments under the loan agreement is a general obligation of the university, and the bonds are not secured by any mortgage, by any pledge of any university revenues, or a debt service reserve fund. I do believe there are still some outstanding bonds that were issued prior to the 2008 resolution that are secured by a pledge of tuition and fee revenues, but these will not be. And I'm going to turn it over to Patrick.
Okay, as described earlier, the Series 2018 resolutions are identical in all aspects, other than with respect to the series designations. Each Series 2018 resolution delegates to various officers of the authority the power to make certain determinations for each series, including the principal amount of the series to be issued, the principal amount of each maturity, provided that the aggregate principal amount does not exceed $790 million as a cap, as discussed earlier. The maturity of the bonds, provided that no bond shall mature later than 40 years from the date of issuance. The type of interest the bonds will bear, whether fixed or variable, provided that the true interest costs of the bonds that are fixed rate bonds and the initial rate of interest for variable rate bonds shall not exceed 7.5% per annum if issued as tax-exempt bond, or 10% per annum if issued as federally taxable bond. It is expected that the bonds will be fixed-rate bonds. Whether the bonds will be sold at public or private sale, whether any bonds will be sold in a direct placement, the denomination or denominations of the bonds, provided, however, that if bonds are sold to a purchaser in a direct placement, the minimum authorized denomination shall be no less than $100,000 and integral multiples of $5,000 above that amount. The redemption date and prices, which may equal to 1% of the principal amount of the bonds to be redeemed, plus accrued interest to the date of redemption, and may alternatively be a make-whole amount that is based on the expected rate of return for such holders. Whether any of the bonds will be subject to purchase in lieu of optional redemption, and the terms on which such purchase is to be made. The project or components thereof for which the bonds are to be issued, together with any allocation or reallocation from time to time of proceeds of the bonds to pay costs of the various components of the project. Whether the bonds will be issued as tax-exempt or federally taxable bonds, and whether to obtain credit enhancement for the payment of all or a portion of the principal, sinking fund installments of, and interest on the bonds, and the terms and condition of such credit enhancement. Each Series 2018 resolution further authorized various officers to prepare and deliver a preliminary official statement and to prepare, execute, and deliver a final official statement in connection with any public offering of the authorized bonds, to execute a bond purchase agreement with the respective underwriters of the bonds in connection with the sale of the bonds, containing such terms and conditions that are customary in connection with the sale of the authority's bonds. In a direct private placement of the bonds, each Series 2018 resolution also authorizes the execution of a bond purchase or bond placement agreement with such purchaser and, if applicable, the placement agent. In addition, each Series 2018 resolution authorizes various officers of the authority to execute all documents and do all things necessary or convenient in connection with the sale and issuance of the authorized bonds.
Patrick, thank you. Are there questions? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please, to approve the transaction? So moved. Charlie, thank you. Is there a second? Adrian, thank you very much. All in favor, please indicate with aye. Aye. If there are none opposed, the motion carries unanimously. Thank you all very much. Thank you. David, you're not permitted to leave yet.
One more.
Behind tab 6 is School District Revenue Bond Financing Program transaction with David Ostrander and Michael Kusak.
So the members may recall back on February 7th, the board authorized and adopted the necessary documents for the issuance of multiple series of bonds on behalf of various New York State school districts. As in previous years, staff requested an amount not to exceed $500 million, which has historically been sufficient to accommodate a June new money and band refinancing pool. Increased demand from school districts for a DASNY pool is now expected to result in a larger June 2018 pool than in previous years. To date, staff has received responses from approximately 60 school districts who wish to participate, and based on the aggregate new money and band refinancing needs of all those participating districts, it's likely that the total par amount of bonds will be issued will exceed 500 million, and we're looking at probably 600 million. So just to put it into context, last year's pool was a large pool, and that was 40 districts with 300 million. So it's a significantly larger pool this year. So to accommodate the current demand for a June 2018 new money and band refinancing pool, we're asking the board to authorize the necessary amendments to the documents that were adopted at the February 7th meeting to increase the not to exceed amount from 500 million to 750 million. Mr. Chair.
David. Are there questions for David or for Michael? Not all school districts participate in this program.
Correct.
That's right. So who is DASNY's major competitor in gaining the school districts? Data switches? I don't know the answer to that. Is it a series of?
The school districts can issue on their own, and it's
right,
really.
But they don't. None of them have the expertise, so they must be relying on some consultant or law firm or something somewhere.
Sure, they have their own bond counsel, and they would have an underwriter that would structure the transaction and sell the bond. So it really works similar. It's all about reimbursement. Is why they come.
Yeah.
But who directs the underwriter? Is going to direct them either to us or to?
They have financial advisors that make the decision on whether it's more favorable for them to issue on their own or to issue through DASNY.
As David indicated, it's really sort of rate driven and reimbursement driven. So interest rates rise. We've always said that you would see more demand for this program because then they're able to get the DASNY rate, which is basically a market rate, as opposed to the statewide average interest rate, which is, if I recall, David, it's a 3-year sort of lagging. It's a lagging indicator.
It's a lagging indicator.
Yeah.
That the one you just referred to. That's what they get reimbursed from by the state. For bonds, correct?
Correct. And Dave, you said it was.
It's 2%. So if they issued on their own, they would essentially have to.
They're going to get a 2% reimbursement. Exactly. But if they issue through us, they're going to get a higher reimbursement.
They'll get reimbursed dollar for dollar. So it's faster.
So in a period of declining interest rates, it's the advantage for them to go.
Because the rate lags behind,
Yeah.
theoretically, in a declining interest rate environment, it would be more favorable to issue on their own.
Thank you. Any other questions for David or for Mike? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please, to approve the transaction? Elizabeth, thank you. Is there a second? John Johnson, thank you very much. All in favor, please indicate with aye. Aye. Okay, none opposed. Motion carries unanimously. We hate to see you go, David.
Appreciate it.
The next item on the agenda is the Audit Committee report. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Audit Committee met yesterday. This was one of our annual procedures. We received a report on the status of the internal audit. Kathy Everett presented that report. We also received a presentation by Karen Erlinger on internal controls. And the thrust of the internal controls report was that they seem to be working, but that we are recommending, and we adopted this recommendation yesterday, that we update our internal controls integrated framework to policies correspond with the Committee of Sponsoring Organizations of the Treadway Commission, referred to as COSO. The COSO framework is sort of the gospel in this area. It brings us up to speed with other New York State agencies, and we recommend that the board approve this amendment and update. Matt, did you make that motion? Or?
I'll do it. How's that?
Yes.
Thanks, John. Before I ask for a motion, let me say that I was fortunate enough to be able to attend your meeting yesterday. I thought you, as chairman of that committee, did a great job. I thought you were supported in a terrific way by the two people who you just named, Kathy Ebert and Karen Ellinger, who are with us today and who both gave terrific presentations. Thank you very much. Now, may I have a motion, please, to approve the resolution which would amend the internal control guidelines? Paul, thank you. Is there a second? John, thank you very much. John Gardner. All in favor, please indicate with aye. Aye. As there are none opposed, the motion carries unanimously. We move on to management reports, and we'll be led in that discussion by the President, Mr. George.
Thank you. Thank you again, Mr. Chair, and good morning. We have several items to discuss today, including a resolution seeking your approval to enter into a contract with Flux Labs to develop a grants management system for DASNY. At present, DASNY's existing grants administration program is paper-based. The Flux system will provide a self-contained grant module that will enable the grantees to complete and submit forms electronically. It is our determination that entering into this contract will better serve our partners, improve the grant administration process, maintain internal controls, and increase efficiency and management of risk protocols. In accordance with Section 4.4 of the DASNY bylaws, which requires board approval of any contract for the general corporate purposes in excess of $300,000, we respectfully request you to consider the resolution at this point.
Thanks, Gerard. First, are there questions? The memorandum that describes this contract is, if you have the paper books, is immediately behind this folded insert. It is entitled Grants Administration Technology Solution, Flux Labs, Inc. You've had a chance to read that. Are there any questions about the memorandum?
So the contract, how did we just a couple of quick questions.
Of course.
Did we select Flux? Was there an RFP? Was there
Through an RFP process.
And you select them, you went through the whole analysis?
We went through a competitive process. Sarah and her team, as well as IS, did a very comprehensive analysis of the marketplace, and then went into this competitive process, selected a winner out of that.
Then Mike went through the contract and did the best you could in negotiating the terms.
Yes, we ended up from our special counsel list retaining the law firm of Aaron Fox, which has an expertise in these type of contracts, which crosses over what we view as commodities as well as professional services. So you have to kind of
basically buying
blend the
software,
two.
right? Basically buying software.
And it's customized, so you're also hiring professional services.
It is like,
as
is
part
there a
of it.
license agreement? You're locked into these
That's-
codes, and if
You have a
like
license
you're
agreement
basically
as
locked
part of
into
it.
this group forever, right? I mean, you never really can
No.
leave them.
No, 3 years. We're entering into a 3-year.
No, I'm saying, okay, after the 3-year term, whatever's like used in their system, if you don't go back and renew that contract, you have to go to another system, and there's all the data then.
Okay, so Sarah, you want to address
Yeah, there are
that?
provisions in there, thank you, for the transfer of data if we terminate. There are termination provisions for convenience, there are termination provisions for breach, obviously, and there are provisions so that we can get the return of all the customer data in the event that we do have to go to another system.
So if we do move Sarah from this group to another, they're obligated in the contract to support that move.
Yes, and they're obligated to continue to support us and the use of the system until that transfer of information is concluded.
Thank you.
Does this software sit on top of a sort of recognized all-purpose database that is common to lots of different things, or is it?
It's their own system.
Their own system.
We did look at, as part of the competitive process, others that did sit on top of other systems, and for a number of reasons, cost, performance, flexibility, the group determined that Flux offered the system that would best meet our needs.
And is this a customization of their existing software, or are they building this for us?
It's configurable. So it's not a full from the ground up customization, it's configurable. They have a number of clients that they manage grants for. So there's the basic product, which then will be configured to our needs.
Do you view this as a relief?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yes,
Sure,
this
it
will
sounds like
help in a number of areas in terms of grants management.
There's no hesitation there.
This has huge implications.
Yeah.
in terms
Well, it seemed
of
like it was
talking-
definitely needed. I just, for sure we did. our own diligence, that's all.
That's right. For
having Sarah do a presentation once you've begun to deal with this. It'd be great to have her.
For the record, to Jerry's question, Sarah Richards is the attorney from counsel's office who was on the procurement committee for this project. Thank you.
Yes, Charlie.
So what system are we using now?
I'm sorry?
What system are we using now?
We have, it's largely paper-based, our grant files, and then we have a grant database that our own information services department created back in, I think, 2002, that houses, basically activity dates, the dates that things happen. We can generate reports from that, but it's not currently a one-stop shopping with the ability to track communications and whatnot. We also have a call center application developed by our information services group, and Frank Hero, who's here with me as an assistant director of grants, helped with that also to track outreach to the grantees. But it's currently not an integrated system so that we can have all those functions together in one system so that anybody here can look at a grant online and be able to discern all the information available about it. So this will provide that ability.
When is it fully up and running? How long is it?
They say 6 months. They say they can do it quickly.
Sir.
Is this on a grant submission on a forward-looking basis, or are we going to go integrate all the data of the past in it as well?
We're pulling from the back, from the past, and trying to put this in the system as well as forward. Now, obviously, from a new application process, that's different, right? Those are the folks who are going to be filling out an application on the system. The old data, which is paper-based, we're going to try to absorb that in some way.
Why?
Why? I mean, we want to monitor. We're administrating.
Yeah, so those are still grants that are active.
They're not
Okay.
grants.
What about the inactive grants, ones that are historic, are done?
Yeah.
No. So we're only going to deal with what we're working on today and what we will work on tomorrow.
Like whatever the new SAM grant lines item, that group in theory will be able to go online and blah, 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 and then it sort of runs through whatever this process is.
And we'll-
With the right same level of oversight, whatever else, it really is just a tool to sort of track these things and they're not all over the map.
It sounds like a lot of good work has gone to the selection of a firm that we all hope will prove to be the right firm.
How many others did we look at?
There were 9 altogether that applied. We interviewed 5. And Flux did distinguish themselves as having a system that would be compatible with what we need and will also make it easier, I should add, not just for DASNY and our administration, but for the grantees as well, to go on and apply and know where they are in the process so that they're informed throughout as well.
Sounds great.
Thank you all. There being no further questions, may I have a motion, please, to approve the contract? Gerard Romsky, thank you very much. Is there a second? Thank you very much, Don Gardner. All in favor, please indicate with aye. Aye. There being none opposed, the motion carries unanimously. And I just asked Gerard whether at some point down the road he might have Sarah and her staff, whether she chooses to do that, come in and do a presentation to the board as to how it's working out. It would be great to know how the integration goes and whether or not you recognize the efficiencies that I know you're expecting.
Great. Yeah, I'd be happy to.
Thank you. Yeah.
And this is, again, enveloped under the One DASNY initiative, where we had the finance team, IS team, legal, a whole host of public finance, you name it, integrated in this process. And the selection as well as the evaluation of how we would go forward. We're very proud of this. This is a very important initiative.
Thanks, Gerard. I think you still have, you're the person on the agenda.
Addressing the negative fiscal implications of the recently enacted federal tax law. Let me start. We also are discussing today Governor Cuomo's financial year 2019 state budget, which was passed by the legislature March 31st. Many budget items will have an impact on our work, including addressing the negative fiscal implications of the recently enacted federal tax law. by creating 2 new state-operated charitable contribution funds to accept donations to improve healthcare and education in the state, as well as forming an optional alternative employer compensation expense program. Making corresponding changes to the tax law to maintain the credit quality of state PIT revenue bonds. The budget legislation increases the percentage of personal income tax revenues deposited into the Revenue Bond Trust Fund and broadens the revenue pledge to include a portion of the new employer-based tax. The fiscal year 2018-2019 executive budget adds approximately $370 million to the existing $2.41 billion for CUNY senior and community college campuses to provide ongoing support for current and future planned projects. It also authorizes DASNY to provide capital construction services to the New York State Office of Children and Family Services, and authorizes DASNY to provide construction and financing services for detention facilities certified by the Office of Children and Family Service and Residential Facilities, licensed by OCFS. The budget also authorizes DASNY to finance projects on behalf of the members and not-for-profit affiliates of cerebral palsy associations of New York State. Currently, DASNY is authorized to provide financing for 25 individual affiliates across the state. This new approval enables current affiliates, along with future members and affiliates, to work with DASNY without having to seek standalone legislation. The budget also extends DASNY's authorization to form subsidiaries for taking title to real property of healthcare facilities acquired by DASNY, acting as a secured creditor, and adds $600 million to last year's appropriation of $150 million to fully fund the life sciences laboratory project that DASNY would undertake for the State Department of Health. And it transfers $19.6 million to DASNY from the State Health Facility Restructuring Program. Lastly, it provides $20 million in capital funding to the Fashion Institute of Technology in Manhattan. This funding is intended to support the construction of a new academic building with a total project budget of nearly $190 million. Additionally, on March 13, DASNY was cited by
Can I
the
ask a
bond
question on
market.
the budget? 2 questions. First, on the very first bullet item about the trust payments or charitable giving, I read somewhere recently that in order to do it at a local school district, they too are going to have to create their own charitable trusts. So every government entity is going to have to create its own charitable trust. Is that accurate or inaccurate?
I don't know that. Does anyone?
Does Adrian know?
My understanding is that municipalities and, local governments and school districts, if they so choose, would have to create.
Yeah, so if you wanted to make a charitable contribution to support your local school district, your local school district is going to be required to create the trust. Second question I had is, I've read, and maybe that was incorrect, that DASNY also was given more authority to aggregate, should I say, building projects for small rural libraries and administer them?
There's a bill to that effect pending, and I'll look into it.
That wasn't in the budget then?
I don't remember seeing it in the budget.
But
I do remember seeing the article.
It was about $20 million to $25 million for rural libraries, basically.
Oh, the funding for rural libraries was probably...
I'm confusing 2 issues. This was the construction side.
That's
to
right.
make financing of rural libraries equal to the financing of Long Island libraries. Basically what it was. And it's going to benefit upstate New York a lot, because it's going to bring DASNY's expertise. So, I appreciate knowing more about that.
Yes, I'll follow up.
You know who introduced it? I think Senator Ritchie did from St. Louis.
Ritchie. John.
It's a good thing, right? It is a good thing.
Oh,
It's a
yeah.
very good thing, and it eliminates, isn't most of our library projects here have to be initiated by a separate action of the legislature?
Yes.
And this creates sort of a blanket authorization, at least for rural libraries.
So
Senator
we'll
Ritchie-
get an update on that bill.
Did Senator Ritchie come up with that on his own?
It's a woman, she's a woman, they are female senators, and she's chairman of the library. So I can't say whether she created it herself or somebody on the committee
Yeah.
created it, but it seems to be positive.
It's interesting that someone out there is thinking of us in the legislative context.
There is in the enacted budget, there was an increase of $10 million to the capital construction funds for libraries. That's run through the education department. I'd be happy to pass it on to Michael in case there's a relationship between the two.
We've done a number of libraries.
Right, but not rural libraries.
There have been some rural ones.
But they were all done with special authorization.
They were, correct.
This eliminates the need for, as I understand it, it's going to eliminate the need for special authorization.
I understand this.
And let people pool projects.
Yeah.
So if you've got 500,000 here and 500,000 there, you can put them together, you get $1 million project, or hopefully a $5 million overall project.
Good.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you.
On March 13, DASNY was cited by the bond buyer as having taken the municipal market by storm, selling about $1.3 billion of bonds in 5 competitive sales. The bond buyer recognized DASNY as one of the largest municipal bond issuers in the country, highlighting the more than $60 billion in bonds sold since 2008. On March 14, I sat down with Andrew Cohn of the bond buyer for a podcast interview. In addition to discussing DASNY being cited by the publication as the nation's second most prolific issuer in 2017, I highlighted how we prepared our clients during a period of uncertainty regarding the future of tax-exempt private activity bonds. This preemptive volley, quote unquote, as the bond buyer put it, exemplifies how DASNY continues to place the needs of its clients and interests of New York State first. I also discussed how our focus now remains on supporting our partners and helping build a resilient, sustainable, and inclusive New York. I am pleased to announce formally that we have selected 2 investment bank partners for our new Public Finance Diversity Fellowships. They are Barclays Capital and RBC Capital Markets. They were chosen by lottery under the supervision of DASNY's auditing partner, KPMG. The DASNY Public Finance Diversity Fellowship creates an extraordinary opportunity to increase diversity within financial services and build a more inclusive workforce. The positions are for a full year beginning July 1st, 2018 through June 30th, 2019. Any questions?
None here.
I will now turn things over to Portia Lee, who will give us a market update.
Thank you, Gerard. Behind tab 11 are the standard public finance reports. Total new issuance supplies about $72 billion year to date. That's down about 27% as compared to the same time last year. Total supply for this year is expected to be about $5 billion. It's a little bit lower than what we've seen in recent weeks. Municipal bond funds have reported outflows of about $247 million for the week ending April 4th. Having said that, year to date, though, we're looking at inflows into the market of about $4.1 billion. 1 year, AAA M&D has increased 24 basis points since the last board meeting, while the 10 and 30-year rates have decreased by 4 and 9 basis points respectively. So, effectively, we're seeing a flattening of the yield curve. As Gerard had noted, we did place the sales tax bonds by competitive sale. That's included in the report. Very, very good, very competitive and aggressive bids there. We closed out the fiscal year with 21 issues totaling $8.5 billion. And again, following up on Gerard's noting about the changes in the budget and the Pitt statute. So, you should expect to see the next time that we bring Pitt, there will be sort of a new formulation there where the amount of Pitt revenues that have been dedicated are increasing from 25% to 50%. And as he had noted, also the pledge will be broadened and expanded by also included the new payroll tax funds. I believe they're called new employer compensation expense tax, and that'll be at an amount of 50%. That concludes my report.
Other questions, Portia?
And my apologies. The only other thing I noted is also included in the report are bond sales summaries, which include performance metrics. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Portia. As it relates to construction, on Thursday, April the 5th, the ribbon was cut and an open house was held at the Binghamton Evaluation Center, a new addiction treatment facility operated by Syracuse Behavioral Health. This is a project sponsored by the New York State Office of Alcoholism and Substance Abuse Services, for which DASNY provided construction, design, and purchasing services. Site work included interior renovations as well as purchasing and coordination of kitchen equipment and furniture. On Friday, April 6th, a ribbon cutting was held at Alfred State College's Mackenzie Complex. DASNY recently completed the $17.8 million Phase 1 renovation, and students have moved into the 132-bed residence hall. An existing 2-story dining hall on the accompanying quad was completely renovated to create food service, student laundry, a fitness room, and seating areas. On April 7th, Dewberry, a private professional services firm, received the Engineering Excellence Award from the American Council of Engineering Companies of New York. DASNY collaborated with Dewberry and the Governor's Office of Storm Recovery on the installation of 5 emergency standby generators in the greater Amsterdam area following Hurricane Irene. In a corresponding press release, I mentioned under Governor Cuomo's leadership, we are helping ensure that the city and town of Amsterdam are building back stronger and smarter than ever before and will be able to meet future emergency needs. Steve will now provide you with an update on the construction division's work.
Thank you. Behind tab 10 are the 3 construction division reports. I'll start with the construction projects report for February 2018. On the cover is highlighted the Helen Hayes Hospital mechanical upgrade project. This project was a $4.7 million project that included replacement of patient room fan coil units, installation of a new chilled water loop for summer cooling, and the installation of a new boiler, which will be utilized for hot water during summer months. Design start was November 2015. Design complete was June 2016. O'Brien and Gear was our design consultant. Construction start was February 2017, and construction was completed this past January. Our GC was Allstate Construction. The project was originally envisioned as 3 separate projects. However, the delivery strategy was changed to realize administrative efficiencies and increase the attractiveness to the bidding community for the project. Challenges included the coordination associated with the installation of systems in an occupied hospital facility, particularly as related to the fan coil unit installation. Patient health and safety were critical concerns. The contractor, our hospital staff, and DASNY reps met weekly to coordinate patient moves and room closures based on work required and the hospital's current and expected census for the upcoming week. 91 fan coil units were installed in 6 weeks in the occupied hospital facility. And our PM was Joanna Yacob. She did that. Did a great job. On page 3, under new projects, we have 2 listed. First, the Queensborough Community College Center for Allied Health, a $10 million project, and the Buffalo State Tower 2 renovation. This will be the last of the 4 towers to be renovated. This project is a $14.5 million reno. Not listed, we recently had conversations with parks with regard to the Purple Heart Museum. It's a $10 million project. DASNY will be cleaning up the parks on to provide an addition and some renovations. On page 7, construction expenditures. Prior year fiscal date, February 2017, we had expended $647 million. Current year, we're at $799 million, so an increase of $152 million year over year. Quickly running through a few program and project updates. I'll start with NYCHA. On the security program, we have 42 projects now complete, 13 projects in construction, and 15 lighting projects, 7 of which are at 100% construction documents, 3 of which we have contracted proposals for, 4 of which are in construction, and 1 of which is complete. On the appliance side, we have 28 completed developments. We just received 1 additional. We have 2 currently in the delivery mode, and we have 4 developments for which appliances are out to bid. Under the Quality of Life program, the outdoor projects are now moving into a spring, summer, fall 2018 construction. And the indoor community center projects mostly are in design. They will move into construction. Design should complete late summer, and then we will be moving into construction with those projects. On the Gozer front, we have 32 projects with DASNY at this point for full-service design and construction management. 6 projects are either in or entering construction at this time. All others are in design, with many of those approaching the construction documents phase or in construction documents. We continue regular meetings with our Gozer counterparts, discussing project issues, administrative matters, and overall program requirements. At the Court Officers Training Academy, work continues on the project, including finish work, installation of the building 2 gymnasium floor, continued commissioning and testing of systems, and exterior site work. Project team members are gearing up for the anticipated TCO, including scheduling the FDNY inspection, elevator testing, the New York City DOB inspection, and other ancillary activities. The schedule now communicates a May occupancy date. At South Beach, our largest current construction project continues to advance under our DASNY TDX team for OMH. We are well into building package 5 activities, including placement of the first floor slab on grade, interior and exterior wall framing, MEP roughing, and exterior site work activities. DASNY, OMH, and TDX conducted our monthly executive meeting this past Monday. Next on-site executive meeting is scheduled in June. At Brockport, I was on site last Tuesday for a walkthrough of the 250-bed new design-build residence hall. The building is enclosed with the exception of the entry curtain wall where a temporary enclosure was utilized for the past winter. MEP system installations are being finalized with testing and commissioning activities upcoming. Wallboard installation on floors 1 through 3 is ongoing. Priming and painting is underway on the first floor. The project continues to drive to a summer completion and fall occupancy. In addition, DASNY recently was notified by SUNY Poly in Utica of their desire to construct a 250-bed residence hall utilizing design build. So building off of Brockport, moving towards SUNY Poly with the same delivery method. As far as SUNY goes, we continue to prepare for the summer 2018 project load, now consisting of over 40 projects with an approximate value of about $33 million. In addition, we're completing large renovation projects at Plattsburgh, Canton, Buffalo State, and as previously noted, Brockport. In total, $90 million of SUNY projects will complete by August. In addition, new large renovation projects that will start in May, once the students depart, will be located at SUNY Albany, Alfred, Buffalo State, and Plattsburgh. Those projects total $7 million. And as Gerard noted, we had some budget activity favorable for the construction division. On the life sciences lab front, we're moving forward, updating the project's basis of design while sites are being analyzed for the project. The FITC Squared project, we anticipate construction documents will be completed in May, and we will advertise for bid in May or early June. And for OCFS, we're currently in discussion with them regarding a couple projects that they'd like to have DASNY take a look at. And lastly, other construction division activities. We continue our efforts with IS on the selection of a new project management system. We continue our recruiting efforts for position across the division. We continue reaching out to SUNY community colleges, marketing our construction division services. Most recently, Ulster Community College and heading to North Country Community College. And we're gearing up for the rollout of our updated construction contract general conditions in early May. In anticipation, we have 3 training sessions for our project managers, which are article-specific training sessions that will occur over the next 3 weeks. And lastly, we continue with the EY recommendations across the many working groups in the division, some of which you'll hear about today. That concludes my report.
Steve, thank you. Are there questions for Steve? Steve, on the SUNY summer projects, you said there are approximately 40 so far, and with a value of $30+ million. You expect more?
We hope not. We try to sneak them in here and there. We recently had conversations with one campus. They are trying to get us to sign up for a couple. Probably can't get them done, so
we're happy to do as much of that work, though, as we can.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Steve. Gerard.
Yes. So we are going to move into the one DASNY session of the presentation. So together for the last 3 years, we have commenced on a huge project in terms of reimagining DASNY and how it will advance its mission and conduct business for the 21st century. With your support and partnership, we have really focused on realigning the organization, focusing specifically on putting the right people in the right places, ensuring that they have the resources, the right policies, practices, and then most importantly, looking at how we have alignments around what risks are we willing to accept and what risks are we looking to assign outside of DASNY. In this larger context, we have done a tremendous amount of introspective work focused on eliminating silos or removing the silos and ultimately eliminating them, and focusing on a lot of integration. So as you saw earlier today, where we have procured the flux process, that has been embedded, that's one of many examples embedded in the One DASNY initiative, where we have collaboration across all of DASNY, and not just at the highest levels of DASNY, but really bubbling up. And so one of the things that we're going to do today is really update you on the work that has come out of the EY initiative and the One DASNY initiative, where we have brought together approximately 100 people in our construction divisions, as well as our finance, public finance, and legal divisions, to really collaborate on the 3 things that are important to helping us advance our mission. That we have to identify how we allocate our capital efficiently. We've got to have greater efficiency, more standardization, and we have to really reflect on the model of risk in the organization in order for us to execute. One of the first initiatives that we commenced was really through our construction division, where we began to look at our small projects and looking at ways where we can be more efficient in identifying ways up front where we can engage in partnerships with our clients to advance these efficiencies and advance these projects. So we are going to have presenting to you one of the individuals, actually a significant number of team members who have participated in the One DASNY initiative, And this initiative has been led by Gail Katzman and Paul Koopman on the construction side. And Gail Katzman, Director of Construction Administration, and her team will provide you with an update on our One DASNY construction work group initiatives. So, Gail, why don't you come?
Yeah. Before you all start, there are parts of this presentation that are probably appropriate for an executive session. So I'm going to ask for one. May I have a motion for an executive session to discuss the financial and credit histories of a particular corporation? Thank you, Jerry. Is there a second? Paul, thank you very much for the second. All in favor, please indicate with aye.
Aye.
Aye. Is there none opposed? The motion carries unanimously. Can we are in executive session? Kim, I know you've got some business that on which we have to take an action, but do you have anything further to your financial report?
I have quick updates on that. When we looked at February, we didn't have any additional closings on financing deals. That was really expected given the volume that we handled at the last month of the year. Our work for public clients continues to stay at above the budgeted level. Our operating expenditures are essentially in line. In terms of our reserves, we had a small expenditure for our consultants that was working to replace our contract manager system that Steve referred to earlier. Beyond the financial report, if there are no questions, we have one resolution before you.
It's behind tab 9. It is immediately behind Kim's financial report. The memorandum is entitled Authorizations to Approve, Invest, and Transfer of Monies and Securities. It's relatively long. Well, no, actually, it's only a page. I thought that it was all 3 pages. Thank you. One is black line. You all had a chance to take a look at this. Are there any questions for Kim about the resolution? Hearing none, may I have a motion, please, to approve it? Thank you, Adrian. Is there a second, please? Charlie, thank you. All in favor, please indicate with aye. Aye. I understand that Mike does not have anything for the. You've actually had a lot of things today, but nothing for this portion of the report, which means that I'd like to get a motion, please, to adjourn. Charles. Gerard, thank you very much. All in favor, please indicate with aye. Aye. There are none opposed. We go from this meeting into the NGHP meeting.